This is Mike with AskTractorMike.com. Had a question from a viewer. What do you think about brush hogging, cutting off the pastures in the winter, or at least in the late fall or through early spring before the leaves are on? And I think that is a tremendous idea. I do it all the time. It's my favorite time of year to brush hog. If you catch an unseasonably warm day in January where it's 35 or 40 degrees, it's not too bad being out on the tractor and get you out of the house. And there's advantages to doing it, especially for your equipment. Now the first advantage I want to talk about today, we're talking about brush hogging when the leaves are off. Well, with the leaves off, you have less material going around underneath the brush hog. The leaves are off for the season. They're down on the floor of the pasture decomposing, and so you have less material going through, and a lot of times I'm able to run at a lower RPM and still get a nice cut. So you're less wear and tear on your brush hog and less wear and tear on your tractor and less fuel use. So that's one advantage. And the second big advantage for me, I live in these old rough hills in the Ozarks, and a lot of times you're brush hogging on top of some stuff that you don't want to hit with a cutter, like rock outcroppings or rocks that are just almost, that are either just buried a little bit or they're on the surface of the ground, or tree stumps or limbs that have fallen down below the grass. When the grass is growing and up and tall, you can't see those, but when the leaves come off and everything's a little sparse, you can see those and drive around them or move them. So there's two big advantages. Now I'm going to tell you some disadvantages of brush hogging this time of year, and here's the big one. You can heat your tractor up quickly and not know it, because what's happening right now, all of these weeds and all the brush has the seed up in the top, and it's mature, and when you hit it with the tractor, either with the loader bucket or with the grill of the tractor, it shatters. And then of course on a tractor, it being a slow moving machine, it has to have a big fan and a lot of suction to blow air through, because it's not moving down the road like a car is. So all that suction blows that seed right into the radiator. And if you're brush hogging on a 40-degree day, you may never even think to look at the temperature gauge, but you can heat up and burn up an engine quickly this time of year. Here's what it looks like after you've been brush hogging in the weed seed. So you want to get out with your leaf blower or a radiator genie every now and again and clean that radiator out. And you may have to do it like 2 or 3 times every day where you're brush hogging, because believe me, there's a lot of volume of weed seed that'll come through that radiator this time of year. Now I'm going to talk today about another problem that can exist with brush hogging this time of year. And if you're in an area like I am, we're a little bit prone to drought. And up until about a week ago, we hadn't had any measurable precipitation for a long time. And I wouldn't brush hog when it was that dry, and all of this stuff with tinder that can burn is up and high and not green. So you have a bigger danger of fire, having a fire break out in your pasture this time of year, especially if you're dry. And if you're real dry, a real farmer, when it's dry like it was here a couple weeks ago, would not brush hog. A small spark and all the turbulence from the brush hog can set a field on fire pretty quick. Now I'm going to take this chance to tell you a couple of things to do if you have a fire. First off, if you have a tractor caddy on your tractor, carry a leaf blower with you. I've never tried to fight fire with a leaf blower, but I've talked to fire department officials, and they say if you have a leaf blower, you can control a big fire on your place, because if you blow back against the wind, you'll blow the fire out and blow the burning material back where it's already burned, and it'll just burn out. But if you don't have a leaf blower, the next best thing to fight fire, and I learned this when I was a kid. We had a Missouri Pacific freight railway down south of us, and a friend of mine lived on that. And back in the 80s, when it was dry a lot, when a train came through, they'd emit sparks and they'd have fires all the time. It seemed like one whole summer it was dry and we did nothing but fight fires. And they'd call the fire department first, and then they'd call me and I'd run down. And the best way to fight a big fire, if you've got a fire breaking out over your pasture, is to take a 5-gallon bucket and fill it about halfway full of water and have some burlap bags, some old like feed sacks around, dip those in the water and then hammer the fire with the sacks, and you can put out a fire over a big area. Anytime I have a bonfire, have people out, and it's just even a little bit dry, especially this time of year when there's a lot of leaves on the ground, I'll get my half full bucket of water in my burlap bag, and again, if you just drop it in there and get it wet, and then start hammering the leading edge of the fire with it, you'll put a big area of fire out quickly. Now, if it's getting away from you, always call your fire department first, your rural fire department. Number one, have your phone with you. And number two, bear in mind that it is a lot of effort and a lot of work on your heart when you're fighting fire. It's one of the hardest things to do. And it's just like shoveling snow. If you're not used to it, you can have a heart attack, even a young guy, pretty quickly doing that. So be careful. But this time of year, you want to beware of fire. And one last thing, if you have a fire breakout, make sure you park your tractor far enough away from it the fire won't come to the tractor. And another thing to remember, if you're like I am, I didn't put up the vinyl fence in front of my place. It's beautiful when it's clean. I wouldn't have put it up. It's an expensive thing. It looks nice, but if fires and vinyl fences don't get along. So if you have a fire and you're trying to determine where to fight it and you have a vinyl fence, try to keep the fire away from the vinyl fence because they'll melt real quickly in a small pasture fire. I survive on web traffic. I'd be honored if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel and like my Facebook page and share this video with other tractor enthusiasts. And if you have questions or comments, put them down below. We'll try to answer them. Thanks for watching.